Alas, poor Sonic. His very name conjures up images of cringy fans, disappointing games, and the massive plumber-shaped shadow that looms large over him.
Bruh.
But that's why we love him. So this Sonic fan was pretty excited when Sonic Superstars was announced earlier this year. Not having learned my lesson from the disappointing Forces or Frontiers, I boarded the hype train eagerly, counting down the days until its October release. Would this finally be a knockout Sonic game? Considering who developed it, the odds were certainly stacked against it. Sonic Superstars was developed by Arzest, the team behind last year's critically panned laughingstock of a game, Balan Wonderworld. With one of Sonic's co-creators, Yuji Naka, arrested for insider trading, Sonic's still law-abiding co-creator and Arzest Studio founder Naoto Oshima had one chance to redeem his studio by returning to work on the franchise that made his name. The assignment? Create a retro 2D throwback Sonic adventure as if it were made by former rivals Nintendo. By taking influence from Nintendo's popular 2D platformers like Mario and Kirby, Sega and Arzest clearly want to win over younger gamers and earn Sonic new fans. In a first for the Sonic series, 4 players can play at the same time. A host of crazy new power-ups have been added, and like its Nintendo counterparts, its primary color palette has been saturated to an eyeball-burning limit. Did Arzest understand the assignment? The answer is yes, as this is the closest to a Nintendo-made Sonic game that we'll probably ever get. But did they get a good grade? The answer is no. While there's still a lot to love about Sonic Superstars, and Sega and Arzest come pretty close to making a good Sonic game, it still cannot live up to the franchise's classic legacy, or the more recent Sonic Mania, and it just pales in comparison to its Nintendo counterparts. I had high hopes for this, and I wanted to see a rare win for the beloved Blue Hedgehog, but sadly, Sonic Superstars is not quite it. While I'm not as fickle as a lot of the Sonic fandom, it's clear that Sega, Sonic Team and Arzest still don't know how to satisfy Sonic's contentious fanbase, nor how to best use their IP and characters to bring in new fans. In this review, I'll highlight the positives of Sonic Superstars, and go in-depth to all the places where it fails to deliver. By the end, you'll know how it stacks up against Sonic's long legacy, if it's really worth shelling out for, and whether the future of the Sonic series is any brighter. And as we gotta go fast, let's get into it. Sonic and friends find themselves in the North Star Islands, where Dr. Eggman is once again kidnapping animals and planning to build a giant space station. Who could have seen that one coming? This time, he's joined by the mischievous Fang the Hunter, reappearing in the Sonic series after a long absence, and mysterious new character, Trip the Sungazer. And that's about it for the story. Don't come to this game looking for much, as it follows closely to the classic Sonic formula. The most interesting part is the addition of Trip, who, minor spoilers, is not in fact a bad character, but becomes a member of the team after completing the game once. She makes a good impression with her cute but shy personality, and is probably the most interesting part of the thin story. I'll circle back to the rest of the characters, and my many disappointments with them, after I talk about the gameplay. Being a 2D Sonic with 3D graphics, Superstars does feel remarkably robust in its physics, with physics having been essentially copied from the brilliant Sonic Mania. As characters build momentum, you get a great sense of speed, and it remains fun racing through stages as fast as you can. As always, running full speed into an enemy or a set of spikes you didn't see is as frustrating and momentum killing as it's always been, as is par the course for Sonic. If you've played any 2D Sonic, you know what to expect. If you haven't, it's easy enough to pick up. The newest twist to the formula is super power-ups, which are unlocked after getting a Chaos Emerald from a minigame. Minigames are accessed from secret warp rings hidden in levels, and these minigames are some of the worst I've ever endured. Suddenly shifting from 2D to 3D, you have to swing around in a vacuum where physics don't apply. You basically just press buttons hoping for the best, and more often than not, you'll fail the challenge for reasons you can't understand. And that's just it, I couldn't make any damn sense of these challenges, meaning the 7 new power-ups were harder to collect than they had any right to be. And if you can unlock a super power-up, they really aren't that fun to use. One of them summons copies of your character to run across the screen, which is good for cheesing boss battles, but not much else. There's also a fireball that shoots you fast, a vine that you can use to reach higher areas, one that lets you climb waterfalls, and so on. As fun as they sound, they rarely have much use, as areas are not designed with these power-ups in mind, apart from a few instances. There is almost no reason at all to use them, and in the few cases you do need them, the game teleports telegraphs them in the most awful way I've ever seen. One power-up, Vision, allows you to see platforms and items which are invisible. While that sounds interesting, its execution is horrible. There is nothing in the environment that hints at invisible objects nearby, and instead you are prompted by an icon that pops up in the lower right corner of the heads-up display. That's right, a pop-up icon. It's boring, bland, and just lazy game design. If you look at something like Mario Wonder's drill power-up, that game will prompt you by putting a path of coins on the ceiling, hinting you might want to head up there. In Sonic Superstars, there's absolutely no interplay between environment and power-up, with the game essentially telling you, use power-up here, in the form of an ugly icon. It's sloppy and downright lazy game design. I can't think of any other platforming game that uses a mechanic like this, let alone one of the biggest legacy franchises out there. It means these power-ups add absolutely nothing to the game, as levels can be completed without them, using them uncovers no rewarding secrets, and they are just downright not fun to use. The individual playstyles of the characters fare better though. Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and Trip have unique abilities that add some variation. Tails flies, Knuckles climbs, Amy double jumps, and Trip both climbs and double jumps. Playable in multiplayer for the first time, I imagine it's fun to play as them with a group of friends, but as an overgrown man-child whose friends are too busy with more important things to do than play a Sonic game, I couldn't say for sure. Anyway, using a particular character might open up an alternate path through a level, and each character gets one stage dedicated to them, where their unique skills are necessary for its completion. Apart from Trip's extended post-game section, that's all they get. One level that takes advantage of their uniqueness. One Tails level, one Knuckles level, one Amy level. They're fun to use, but don't get enough chances to shine on their own. Each level culminates in a boss battle, and this is surprisingly one of Superstar's strengths. The boss battles are varied and creative, and play out in ways never before seen in a 2D Sonic, owing to its 2.5D nature. Some bosses play creatively with the concepts of foreground and background, and some you'll need to run around in a circle-shaped arena, so it's always fun encountering a new boss and seeing how it plays with the Sonic formula. Unfortunately, the final few bosses spike in difficulty and you'll have to attempt them many times. It felt a bit unfair, and some mid-boss checkpoints would have been nice here. While visually most of them are robots and share a bit too much visual consistency, they're fun nonetheless. The variety of bosses is the one thing Sonic does better than its rival Mario Wonder, so full credit to the development team for this. However, something that Sonic does far worse than Mario is its amount of content. In Sonic's case, there's a sheer lack of it. There are only 12 worlds, each with 2 to 3 levels or acts each, and that's it. While I was glad that each world has a brand new theme, there's no Green Hill Zone or Angel Island Zone to be found here. There simply aren't enough of them. A personal favourite was the Press Factory Zone, which has the gimmick of a timer in the background that signals when the hydraulic presses will press down, something you have to deal with either by jumping out of the way, or using the impact of them to jump higher. There are a few stage gimmicks like this, and it's fun to see originality and creativity on display in 2D Sonic, something we don't see enough of, as games like Sonic 4, Generations, and Mania over-relied on rehashing stage themes. And given there's some genuine creativity on display here, it's all the more disappointing when the entire campaign can be knocked out in a couple of hours, with next to no replay value. The number of levels is far lower than other industry-leading platformers like Mario, Kirby, or Donkey Kong, which to me is totally unacceptable, especially with Sonic releasing in the same week and for the same price as a new Mario game. I didn't necessarily want to spend a long portion of this video comparing Sonic Superstars to Super Mario Bros. Wonder, but as they were released in the same week, comparison was inevitable, especially with the astounding difference in quality and value between the two. By releasing Sonic Superstars in the same week as Mario Wonder, Sega set themselves up for failure and ridicule, especially as their game now lives in the shadow of a far superior one. This is made all the more hilarious by Sega's recent comments that they want to see Sonic games exceed Mario games. Good luck with that. Mario Wonder does things so much better. Use of power-ups, quantity of levels, variety of characters, and most importantly, it enhances and celebrates the legacy of its IP rather than diminishes it. One of the ways Sonic Superstars diminishes Sonic's legacy and disappoints its fanbase is its use of characters. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy all revert to their classic design, despite being rendered as 3D models. And that would have been fine if Sega didn't impose bafflingly stupid restrictions on the classic versions of its characters. First of all, characters are rendered mute. This is nonsensical, boring, and just plain stupid. Even in the nicely animated cartoon cutscenes, characters flap their mouths with no sound coming out. If you have access to some of the biggest characters in gaming, then you should portray them as excessively and with as much personality as possible. The other extreme of this is last year's Sonic Frontiers, where the characters just wouldn't shut up, going on long monologues about lore and that game's complicated story. While we don't need that or any complex voice acting in Sonic Superstars, just a little bit would have been nice. You play 2D Kirby and Mario and those characters are still just so full of life, exclaiming cheerfully when they get a power-up, "Wowie zowie!" or screaming in pain when they get hit. Honestly, that's what Sonic Superstars needs. Portray these fan-favorite characters in a way that allows their personalities to shine through. And second of all, its lack of characters. When asked why fan-favorite character Shadow isn't here, Sonic Team's Takashi Iizuka said that it's because Shadow doesn't appear in classic or 2D Sonic games. This is another pointless restriction, especially as in the same week, Nintendo broke their own restrictions and promoted Princess Daisy from spin-off character to main character, making her playable debut in Mario Wonder. And she hardly has the popularity behind her that Shadow does. Why not blow Sonic wide open and add fan-favorite characters like Rouge the Bat? Rouge was just announced as a playable character for the new Sonic mobile game, so why can't she be here? And why the arbitrary separation of classic Sonic and modern Sonic? They are still the same character. Apart from a small but vocal fan base, 99% of players just want to see Sonic portrayed in the best way possible. Who cares about lore at this point? Just put voice acting and Shadow in. Come up with a convoluted reason for Shadow being here that doesn't break the precious canon if you have to. I cannot understand why Sonic Team or Iizuka or whoever put these restrictions in, especially as Sonic's former rival Mario is breaking his own conventions. And Sega contradict themselves too, as they put in a bizarre Lego Sonic skin, as well as a modern skin for Amy as downloadable bonuses. The same Amy skin that Sega inexplicably said I was ineligible for. Thanks, Sega. So we get Lego and modern skins, but voice acting in Shadow is unacceptable? I just don't get it. The point is, Sega had the chance to break conventions and deliver a product that satisfies both new and old fans, but their strict adherence to tradition has stifled innovation, and they are hell-bent on keeping Sonic shackled to the past, and keeping him as the mascot of a mediocre franchise that continually lets down its fan base. And keeping the train of mediocrity going, we have the performance. This is a multi-platform release, and looks a bit nicer on other platforms, but the Switch version I played is the worst looking and worst performing. The backgrounds lack the detail they do on other platforms, and the loading times are excessively long for such simple environments. While the frame rate is smooth during single-player gameplay and colours are bright and vivid, it's clearly not optimized for the Switch. In the online multiplayer battle mode, the frame rate is halved, and I could only match with one other player, so that mode is already dead and not worth playing. And there's another problem. To truly commit to the concept of multiplayer Nintendo-style Sonic, this should have been optimized for the Switch. This is the kind of game they want people playing with their kids, so the Switch would be the perfect system for it. While the best version of this game is the PS5 version, who has a PS5 with multiple controllers ready to go? A huge number of families have Switches and controllers 7 years into its lifespan, so Sega should have funneled all their resources into making it a Switch exclusive, optimizing it for the console, and at the same time, by not releasing it multi-platform, allocate more resources to improving its quality and increasing its amount of content. Let's end on a positive. At least the music absolutely slaps. Skewing more towards Sonic's pop origins, the soundtrack is bouncy, fun, and infectious. A high point of all Sonic games is their music, and despite not having any vocal rock songs, it's a great soundtrack that sits comfortably alongside Sonic's musical legacy. Nostalgic fans will love hearing all the classic sound effects, it's just a shame there's no voice work to accompany them. To conclude, Sonic Superstars is a mediocre game that doesn't deliver anything new or meaningful to the Sonic franchise. Despite a rock-solid concept and premise, Arzest, Sonic Team and Sega failed to maximize its potential, instead playing it too safe and stifling innovations by placing arbitrary restrictions on its characters. Not at all optimized for the Switch, it could have used 6 to 12 months more development time to refine the gameplay and expand the amount of content. There's some fun stage concepts, creative bosses, and decent enough overall gameplay, but useless new power-ups and an overall too short campaign means there's not enough value here to justify its full price. Sonic fans are getting tired of this. getting excited for a game that looks like it might finally be that one good Sonic game, only to be inevitably disappointed once again. When they gave Sonic to a group of devs who understood it better than they understand it themselves, a great game in Sonic Mania was created. By keeping it in-house, Sonic has reverted to mediocrity. It's time to give Sonic to a new developer and give them a chance to truly innovate, rather than keep Sonic shackled to its past. This Sonic fan will soon forget about Sonic Superstars. I know that was negative, but I had really hoped to enjoy this game half as much as I enjoyed the far superior Mario Wonder. Anyway, what about you? Have you played Sonic Superstars? What did you think? What's your favourite Sonic game? Let me know in the comments down below. Yes? What's that? You want the lovely people to subscribe? Well, you heard the hedgehog. I'll see you next time.